Hey everybody, this is Ori from OneScales, and in today's video I'm going to talk to you about a really important question that a lot of you ask, which is why is my platform, for example Shopify, my report data, why is it so different from my Google Analytics data? They're way off. It's like 30% or 50% different. Something is wrong. I'm not sure what's wrong, and what do I do next? So this video is to try to explain to you guys what's going on, how do you identify the problem, and once you identify the problem, you can actually figure out how to solve the problem. I'm going to show Shopify and Google Analytics, but this topic of this video applies to figuring it out for any platform you have. And as always, OneScales is here to make a better community. If you have a specific question that you want to ask, let us know in the comments, say hello, contact us, and we'll try to help as best as we can. The community obviously can help, and we're trying to make better data, solve problems for you guys, and help you guys. So let's jump into it right now. First of all, I want to introduce a little bit. So let's say, for example, I'm going to give you a real example. I have a Shopify site. I went to my reports section. I selected a time frame, for example, August 1st to August 10th. And I have some data. Maybe I have like 98 sessions right here. And then I go to my Google Analytics within the same time frame, and I look and I have 50. That's 50 versus 98. It's almost double, right? I have half the amount of sessions in my Google Analytics than I have in Shopify. Something's wrong. I don't know what's going on. I don't know who to trust. That's kind of the concept, okay? So these are some examples we're going to show. So number two, what is healthy? So how do I know if my data is actually okay? Is it off by 1%, 5%, 10%, 20%, 50%? Is that normal? So in general, every case will be a little bit different. But I would say from all of the projects that I've worked on over the years, anything that's under 10% is very likely to be okay. There should be variations because platforms measure things in different ways. Their terminology is different, how they define things are different, and how they measure things are different. And there's a lot of details between that, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. Now, some projects, 15 and 20%, some sites, some websites, 15 and 20% are still within normal, but I would say just to be safe, within 10% is probably a good number, sometimes 15%, sometimes 20%, okay? So if you have something that's more than 10% off, you need to probably look at that detail. Okay, so number three, this is the core of this video, identifying the problem. Before you can solve something, you need to understand the problem first. So what do we need to identify first? So first of all, which one is off? Okay, identify anchor. So what does that mean? I go here and I have 51 sessions right here in Google Analytics, and I have 98 here. Right? So how do I know which one is off? What's going on? So the first thing I want to do is to try to identify some kind of anchor, some kind of fact, something that I think is true, and I want to stick with that. So if I go and I look at my data, for example, maybe I look at orders or sessions or something like that. So let's take a orders in this example. So if I go here, if I go to orders right here in my Shopify, I can actually see exactly the people that spent money using a credit card that the payment gateway processed for them. So I know those are real orders. So let's say I have 20 orders. I can go ahead, and that is an anchor point for me because I know that Shopify is the true data of orders. Anything that Google Analytics have is what Shopify provides. And if I have 20 orders in Google Analytics and I have 20 orders in Shopify, I know it's correct. If I only have 10 orders in Analytics and I have 20 in Shopify, I know Shopify data is correct. So what you need to do is identify some kind of anchor, something that you know is true for a fact. Now, if you don't have some kind of anchor, you need to start looking at some reports, which we'll look a little later, things like real time. You can start looking to figure out what kind of anchor you have. So for example, you can visit the page with a specific browser. Make sure you only get one visit for that in your real time. And you can start identifying things that are, for sure are a fact. Okay, so we're going to jump in a few different topics, kind of go a little bit back. The second thing you want to do for identifying the problem is figuring out which one is higher, which is lower. And then that'll help you identify what the cause is. So for example, I have some anchor. It says I have 20 orders. And let's say in Google Analytics, I have 40 orders or 10 orders. Then I knowing which one is higher and which one lower will help you identify the problem. So I know the anchor of orders is 20. if I have 40 orders in analytics, oh, analytics for sure is getting the wrong data. It's over what I know, or if it's under, means maybe my tracking is not working correct. It's not identifying or sending all the order data. If it's sending exactly double the number, so instead of 20 in Shopify, in analytics as 40, I probably am duplicating my orders via some kind of duplicate code or app or something like that. Okay, so that's the second thing you need to do. The third thing you need to do is think about which data is actually wrong. So in some cases, all your data is wrong. The sessions, the visits, the page views, the sources, the orders, the contact forms, the goals, events, everything, they're completely off. But in some cases, only one or some of the data. For example, let's say my sessions are exactly the same in Google Analytics and Shopify, but the only thing that's wrong is my orders. So now I can go ahead and I can look at all the custom code that was done on the orders or the checkout page, all the apps that deal with the orders, things like that, and I can start to identify it closer, right? Okay, so next one. Find the date. This is a really interesting, very simple concept that is super, super important. So let's say I selected my date right here. I have my date range, August 1st, August 10th. I know the data is double wrong, right? So it's half. So half of the sessions in Shopify are in Google Analytics, right? So it's very, very off in this case. So what do I need to do? So the first thing I want to do is, if it's not a new site, so if from day one it has if from day one it's off, that it's a new site, then I know, okay, the implementation is wrong, I can do it. But in most cases, it probably worked in the past fine, and then something changed that you did. Maybe you release some new code, you have a new app, you have a new system, you change some setting, and then it started. So it started to be off. So what you need to do is actually go back all the way in time, go to the beginning of when you set up your site and everything, and take certain periods, for example, the first 6 months and the next 6 months, and then see when the data started to be off. Maybe last year when you launched a site, Google Analytics and Shopify had the same exact data. Everything was fine, but maybe a few months ago you noticed that numbers are very, very off. So you would have to start sampling different time frames, and then you'll see when it started to be. And if you identify the specific date that it started to be off, then you can look at what changed during that time. So let me give you some examples, okay? So let's say I identified, just for example, that my data, anything before August 1st was good, and from August 1st, something happened. So I'm going to take the dates of August 1st, excuse me, August 1st, and the days before that, and I'm going to see if I did anything. So what do I see? So the first thing I need to do is go to Shopify, go to my platform, and I can go here, and I'm just open another window. I can go here and I can type in activity. And so when I look at activity, I'll be able to see this page, which is called Store Activity. Some people have it in Store Activity in the settings, and some people you have to search for it depending on the store. And you'll be able to see by date what changes were made. For example, a new post happened, or a new setting changed, a permission, an app was installed, something like that. And you'll be able to see during the dates that you know have a problem, the day that things started to be bad, you can say, okay, you know what? I actually installed an app here. You know what? Maybe I need to look at this app to see why it affected my results. And you can also go to Google Analytics. You can go to your admin, and you can go to your account change history, and you can see what was changed in the settings in Google Analytics right here. And if you have Google Tag Manager, you can do the same using your versions. You can see what was changed over time. This is a way for you to identify the changes you've made. In most cases, things break or things don't report correctly because you've made some kind of change that affected it in a bad way. Okay, so let's jump to the next one. Next one is debug with real time. So once you've identified the dates, which is lower, which is higher, what's going on, you now need to actually look at your data when real people visit, just like yourself. What happens? Are things being duplicated? Are things being missing? So you have to actually go visit the website as a real visitor, a real customer, make an order, click around, do things, and you can actually debug it in real time. So let's look at an example or two. Let's just kind of view a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead here. I'm going to open a new window right here, and I'm just going to visit a page. For example, I visit my About Us page. You can click around. Obviously, you should make orders and create accounts and things like that. Use the website fully. So what do you do? So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go here to Google Tag Manager, and if you don't have Tag Manager, I strongly suggest for you to do it. There's also the Tag Assistant, which works the same thing. I'm going to click here on Preview, and I'm actually going to put in my website right here, Connect, and now it's connected. So now I can visit the website. For example, I can go and make an order, etc. When I do that in Google Tag Manager, I have all my visits, every page view, every action, every e-commerce event, all the data that's being gathered is here. So if I click here on the home page, I can see that one tag is fired. For example, if I click on Analytics, and I click on the page, only one page view was there. It wasn't a duplicate page view. There's an engagement. You can click here and you can see the data. What is being sent? For example, this is the page location. This is where it came from. This is the refer, how the person came to the website, things like that. So you can start to identify based on what kind of data you know is wrong. For example, maybe e-commerce data is wrong. You'll actually look and make an order, and you'll look at the data that is being sent there. Okay, and you can go here. This is the About Us page. You can see one page view, etc., etc., and you can also see the specific elements right here. Okay, this is for Tag Manager for Google Analytics. I strongly suggest for you to use the specific one. I'm sure we'll make a video about Google Tag Manager detailed debugging, but this is just the kind of high level. Okay. So same thing, you can go actually to the live view. You can actually go to your website, just see that it's gathering one visitor, not two visitors at a time or something like that. Okay, great. So let's jump into the next thing. Next one is look at custom settings and apps. If you remembered, most of the time, if it worked before and you identified the date that it's not working, some kind of setting, some kind of app you installed, some kind of setting on the app, some kind of code that you maybe deployed, maybe you changed the theme, your developer did something, you need to look at these custom settings and apps. So what do you want? What are we going to do? So first of all is look at time zones. This is a simple thing that maybe 1% of you, this is the specific problem. So sometimes the time zone of your Shopify. So for example, if I go here to settings and I go here, I can see my time zone, for example, is -5 GMT. And then if I go to Google Analytics, I can actually see here in the admin property settings, I can see my time zone. Maybe it's different. That way the data between day to day is a little off because it's closing the data based on slightly different days. So that's one setting you can check. The other thing is you want to check all your other settings, see if there's anything you did wrong. Go to all of your apps, see what's going on with some setting you did, right? Look at the settings you changed, is in particular on the dates that were there, right? That you know have a problem. Look at when you installed, look at the activity log, just like we saw before, and look at when things are installed, okay? The next one is, and the last one is platform differences and discrepancies. So we mentioned in the beginning that different platforms have different terminology, which means they define certain things in different ways. Even Google Analytics UA, the old Google Analytics, and Google Analytics 4, even the same terms, they slightly define them differently. A session might be a little bit different between versions. And Shopify and Google Analytics also have many things that are different. So you need to consider how maybe you have visitors that have ad blockers, or they don't have JavaScript, or they're from Europe and cookie laws are different, or maybe the browser handles are different, things like that. So these are another reason why some of your data might be a little bit different, and some of it's actually healthy, okay, especially if it's within 10%. Other than that, each platform, because they define things differently, you should read about the platform. So for example, I'm going to share right here. In Shopify, there's a documentation talking about analytics discrepancies. And so most of the things that we already talked about, they mention here. For example, time zone right here, they mention. And one of the things I mentioned is very, very clear here. In the sessions over time report, which is the one we actually, in the beginning of the video, showed that there were 98 sessions, it actually says here that they can count a visitor if they came from multiple places from outside the website. Maybe they typed in the website, then they came from social. It actually can be counted as visited twice. And in particular, our website, this is the specific problem that we have, why our data in Google Analytics is so different from our data in Shopify. So we actually, after debugging everything and using real time and checking the time and checking all the stuff we talked about, we realized that this is actually the specific problem for us. Some of you might have a time zone difference. Some of you might have a code or app that affected it incorrectly. And these are most of the cases, the most popular cases for it. But you need to read sometimes the definitions regulations and the documentations. Maybe cookies are handled different between Google Analytics and Shopify. GDPR, which is a European regulation, might handle different. So maybe if some of your visitors are from Europe, Analytics and Shopify might track them very, very differently. Okay. And there also might be things like this, like bugs. So for example, Shopify between these dates might not be accurate if you use Shop Pay. So they might have had some bug or some upgrade or something like that. Okay, great. So just want to summarize this. So this video is for you guys to help answer the question, figure out why your data is off. We talk about first identifying the problem, identify the anchors, things you know are true, and figure out which one is higher, which one is lower. Which data is actually wrong? Is it all or some of it? Find the date, which is a huge, huge tip. This is one of the most important things you can do. Find the date. Figure out when it was working and when it was not working. Go to exactly those dates. Figure out what you changed, what setting, what app you installed, what code you changed, things like that. And then don't forget all the settings and details like that. And don't forget things could be maybe within 10% or maximum 20% might be actually okay because the platforms define them differently. So I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, if you have a specific question about your specific problem, please write in the comments. As best as we can, we'll try to help. We've helped a lot of people. Ask questions. The community can also jump in and help. We'd love for you guys to help others as well. We're making a community. We're trying to make better education for you guys. We're trying to learn from you guys and make more efficient data, help you guys become professionals, get skills, do things better, save time, and just be overall better. So if you like this video, please say hello, like, share, subscribe, click on the bell, send to a friend, and really just connect with us. Tell us what you like about it, what you didn't like about it, what you want to see next, your specific problem, share so others can learn and others can solve their problems easier. Much, much appreciated, guys. Thank you very much.